Never one to shrink from an honest challenge.
Get after it.
It's physics. All right, so if I lift it, I then rule Asgard?
Yes, of course.
I will be reinstituting Prima Nocta. Be right back. Are you even pulling? Are you on my team?
Just represent, pull.
All right, let's go.
This is Darwin to Jesus, and welcome to another video where I try to explain to atheists and secularists why morality is nonsense if there is no God. Today I'll be going over a video made by Stephan Fry where he explains morality from a humanist perspective as if it's not a bunch of incoherent nonsense. The only problem is that it is nonsense, and I'm going to explain why, so let's get into it.
What makes something right or wrong?
Spoiler alert, what makes something right or wrong is absolutely nothing if morality is not objective.
Don't you know this?
If morality is subjective, then there is no right or wrong. To say there is would be just like saying it's not right to think that the perfect temperature at work is 73 degrees, or it's not right to eat your banana without peanut butter. These are opinions based on personal preferences. There is no right or wrong.
Some people believe that what is right and wrong never varies from situation to situation, and that it can be expressed in constant and unchanging commandments.
Not really. What Stephen is talking about here when he says morality can be expressed in constant and unchanging commandments is actually moral absolutism, not moral objectivity. So as an example of this, in 1940s Germany, if you were hiding a family of Jews and the police came to your door and asked you if you had anyone else in the house, if morality is absolute, then lying is always wrong, and you should tell the truth. But if morality is objective, then in this situation, the right thing to do might be to lie. This is what most Christians believe, that moral facts exist, but they depend on the situation. It's generally wrong to kill for fun, but there are times when we are supposed to kill in the name of justice. So there's a difference between objective morality and moral absolutism.
They often look to religious texts or authorities to discover what they think a God wants them to do. A humanist view of morality is different.
In other words, the humanist view of morality is they get to be the authority. They get to play God.
Humanists do not look to any God for rules, but think carefully for themselves about what might be the best way to live.
See what I mean? They determine what's good and what's evil for themselves. Who is the ultimate authority? Well, they are. That's why humanists all think they are such fantastic people. It's really easy to be good when you decide what good is.
This approach means we have always to be empathetic and think about the effects of our choices on the happiness or suffering of the people, or sometimes other animals, concerned.
That's not at all what that means. Stephan Fry just slipped in his personal values as if they are good. But 10 seconds ago he said we all get to decide for ourselves which values are good. So a secularist can decide that selfishness and greed are the highest values. They can determine whatever they like. It's their call, their opinion, and they can't be wrong.
We have to respect the rights and wishes of those involved, trying to find the kindest course of action or the option that will do the least harm.
No, Stephen, you don't have to do any of that. You get to decide your values and you get to decide your obligations. It's all just subjective. When you say cause the least harm, that is what you value. But other secular humanists might value causing the most harm. They decide for themselves after careful reasoning, whatever that actually means. You see, this is what atheists do. They are presupposing that smart people will always agree with them. If you're smart and good, you'll agree with them. A smart person would realize there is no God, like Stephen did. A good person would value the well-being of humans and animals, like Stephen did. If you want to be smart and good, don't be like God, be like Stephan Fry. Notice how he worships himself? Anyway.
We have to consider carefully the particular situation we find ourselves in, and not just take any rule or commandment for granted.
In other words, you are the rule. You get to command what is right. If you want to kill your unborn baby, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
As long as you think carefully about it, then whatever you decide is right is, well, right. Right?
We have to weigh up the evidence we have available to us about what the probable consequences of our actions will be.
Notice that Stephen began by saying that each individual gets to decide for themselves what is good and what to value. And yet here he is acting as if all people will just agree with his values and obligations, when we know this is exactly not the case. We know people don't agree. Stephen keeps saying we. Who is this we, Stephen? I thought you said that individuals get to decide for themselves what to value.
This way of thinking about what we should do is explicitly based on reason, experience, and empathy, and respect for others.
No, it isn't based on those things. Stephen is basing his morality on those things, but anyone else can determine whatever values they like. What were the Joker's values? Was he all about reason, empathy, respect for others?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Yet the Joker was very intelligent, and he developed his own values, his own moral framework.
You see, their morals, their code, it's a bad joke. Dropped at the first sign of trouble. They're only as good as the world allows them to be. I'll show you. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other. See, I'm not a monster. I'm just ahead of the curve.
Under secular humanism, the Joker is no more or less right than Stephan Fry. We all get to decide for ourselves what is right and wrong, right?
Rather than on tradition or deference to authority.
Secular humanism has been around for hundreds of years, maybe even thousands, so he is actually appealing to a tradition, and he also has an authority, himself. He is his authority. He is the authority.
It might sound hard, but luckily most of us do it most of the time without really thinking about it.
It doesn't sound hard at all. You mean I get to decide what's right and wrong? I don't need to obey God or anyone else? My opinion and preferences are ultimate? What is hard about that? Following the Bible is what's hard. Submitting to something outside of yourself is what's hard. Serving yourself is the easiest, most natural thing on the planet. That's easy, Stephen.
Morality is not something that comes from outside of human beings, gifted to us by an external force like a god.
The argument has never been that God gifts humans with morality. This would imply that we are good because of God or something. But this is clearly not the argument. Otherwise, religious people would say humans all act good all the time because of God. And no one says that. The argument is that if there is no God, then there is no actual morality. All we have is opinion. There is no right or wrong, just preferences. There's no right way to eat a pizza, and there's no right way to raise your child. Do whatever you want. That's what Aleister Crowley said. Do as thou wilt. And that's really what Stephan Fry is saying. I decide what is good. I can do whatever I want. There's no authority over me. I am the authority.
When we look at our closest relatives in the animal world, we see the same basic tendencies we recognize in ourselves: affection, cooperation, all the behavior needed to live in groups and thrive.
Are we really supposed to get our morality from animals? Animals are savage and brutal. For example, lions, when they take over a pride, will kill all the cubs. Is that good? Should we do that? The humanists are cherry-picking from nature and acting like these behaviors are good, when in reality, any behavior we see in nature could be arbitrarily chosen as model behavior, and far more of the animal behavior is ruthless, savage, and brutal. I mean, this picture shows two different types of apes sharing a banana. Is that how different types of apes act? Hey man, want this banana, my brother from another ape tribe? No, that's not how they act. These apes would be pulling each other's arms off, not sharing bananas. It's almost painful how naive these people are sometimes.
It is clear that our social instincts form the basis of morality and that they are a natural part of humanity.
It's not clear, Stephen, because actually our instincts are selfishness and brutality, not altruism and kindness. If you doubt that, then go drive around in a city for a few days and tell me what people's instincts are. The reality is that humans are always trying to overcome our instincts. Imagine actually doing the first thing that came into your mind, your first instinct. You'd be a murderer pretty quick, maybe even worse.
Of course, that is not the end of the story. The long experience of tens of thousands of years of human beings living in communities has developed and refined our morality, and we are all the lucky inheritors of that hard work.
Stephen is saying experience has developed and refined our morality, but what does that even mean? Would the Joker think our morality was developed and refined? Is a praying mantis morality developed and refined when it eats the head of its spouse? You see how all this is just total nonsense?
It does not mean that there are not people who do harm or make bad choices.
Wait a second, Stephen. Who are you to decide if someone is doing harm or making a bad choice? You said we all get to decide for ourselves at the beginning of the video. Now you're acting like actual objective moral values actually exist regardless of your or my opinion. So which is it?
But ultimately, morality comes from us, not from any god. It is to do with people, with individual goodwill and social responsibility. It is about not being completely selfish, about kindness and consideration towards others. Ideas of freedom, justice, happiness, equality, fairness, and all the other values we may live by are human inventions.
You know what else are human inventions if there is no God? Inequality, unfairness, injustice, sadness, hatred, selfishness, apathy, greed. You get the idea. Why are any of these wrong? You see, Stephen is simply picking values he likes, and anyone else can pick any other values that they like, and societies have done exactly that. It's only in the West that we recently embraced these modern ideas that freedom is good, or equality, etc. In other words, Stephen is just a product of his culture, and he thinks that he's a free thinker, and really, he's just parroting the current cultural trends he grew up in. If Stephan Fry were born 500 years ago, he'd be praising aristocracy and a class system and talking about how that was progress. It's all relative nonsense.
And we can be proud of that, as we strive to live up to them.
Alright, let's summarize. Stephen began this video with the question, what makes something right or wrong? And his answer, we do. We decide what is right and wrong. So if you decide that rape and genocide is right, that is right. You get to decide. There is no higher authority. Do whatever you want, pick whatever values you want, love or hate however you want, and call all of it right. This is morality to a secular humanist. This is absolute nonsense. The correct answer to Stephen's question of what makes something right or wrong is nothing. If there is no God, there is no right or wrong. It's just opinion and preference. That's it. Alright, and that about wraps it up. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, share, subscribe, and comment so I can see what you think. Have a wonderful day, and God bless.